Of the agenda. So I want to make that motion for me, Councilor Cherry, Councilor Orlando. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Adoption of the minutes of the regular committee of the whole of April 16th. Someone want to make that motion for me? Councilor Cherry, seconded by Councilor Orlando. All in favor? Motion's carried. Any business arising from the minutes? Councilor Cherry?
Yeah, just like to tee up our CAO in Parliament for any staffing updates.
Mr. Parliament?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last month, at the end of the month, HR sent out an email detailing some of the movements in the city, with new hires and a couple of leaves. And most notable on the list is the hiring since January 1st of 3 firefighters. That has made an amazing impact on the overall chemistry of the working fire department. I think that was evidenced during SILGA. We had Quaid Nakamoto and Kyle Scott join early in the year, January 5th, and we have Ann Sturdy joined us on April the 1st. Very pleased, as the fire chief would say, about the chemistry and the overall working improvement of the fire hall and the fire department. I think these three have made a tremendous impact with the existing staff we already have. There's been a lot of changes in the fire department. The other note is it was announced that Rebecca Armstrong has joined us as manager of finance, and she's new. She comes from Salmon Arm, but now she's elevated herself to accept the interim director of finance. She's basically started this week. She's agreed to step up and work with our other superstar in the finance department, and that's Kim Chen. And they're going to be basically running finance in Shannon Moore's absence for the next 12 to 18 months while she's on mat leave. And also very proud of the advancement of Joel Martin, who's now taken the plunge and accepted the position of building and facility superintendent, replacing Troy Biggs, who's on leave. Joel has stepped up and assumed that position. In terms of the upcoming interview for CED, we had 22 applications. We've narrowed it down to 4 candidates. Those candidates will be interviewed tomorrow, and we should be offering a position to one of the successful candidates, most likely end of next week. Thank you.
Great. All right. Thanks for the update. Appreciate that. All right. We're going to move on to delegations and presentations. Today we have 2 presentations, and our first is Revelstoke Local Food Initiative Food Security and Access Update. Ms. Georgie Highland is here. We're giving you a long title of things to discuss. Georgie, if you want to come forward to the podium, if you want to bring Amanda with you. And there's 3 of you.
Mel sends her regrets. She's sick. So
Okay.
so you might not know, but Mel has never been our president despite being on our board for 11 years. So she's now our new president.
Awesome.
Which is a great asset. So Isabel's going to join us, our market manager.
All right.
Okay, cool. So we come about once a year just to kind of give updates on what the LFI is up to. Our biggest being now that we have a new food security coordinator going into our 3rd year of this contract that we have with the city. So we wanted to give an update on her role, and then some of you guys are familiar with a lot of our programs, but 3 of our programs that have had the biggest kind of updates and successes over the last year, and then talk about food security going forward.
Okay.
All right, well, nice to meet you all. As Amanda said, I'm the new food security coordinator for the LFI. My name is Georgie Highland. So we're just about to go into the 3rd year of our 3-year contract with the city of Revelstoke. So just a few highlights of the role, some things you might not know that we've done over the past year. We signed an MOU with School District 19, and we secured funding for a School Foods United Way grant for school food infrastructure of $50,000. And through that grant, we installed 10 hydroponic towers into the high school and some elementary schools, with 4 more to come. And we just finished installing a school foods greenhouse at our community garden and that will go to all the food produced in that greenhouse will go into school food. We also signed an MOU with Community Connections to develop a winter market nutrition coupon program, and we'll be running the pilot of that program this winter. And a local food fund, which is a public fundraiser for the food bank to purchase food grown locally in Revelstoke and provide that to the food bank. Sam, who was in the role before me, hosted Indigenous food sovereignty workshops. We reestablished the Farmers Network to support local farmers in Revelstoke. And we began some emergency preparedness work in collaboration with Community Food Futures and Community Economic Development. All right, perfect. And Amanda will go into some history of the food security role later on in the presentation.
Okay. It was important to me as the executive director to start to increase our impact of our community gardens. Kind of seeing that the existing ones we have had a really hard entry point for anyone new to the community. So we developed a 1/4 acre on private land, so down Il Silhouette Road next to the Avalanche Association, with a gentleman that owns 14 acres. So we secured just under $50,000 kind of in community donations, CBT, and then this United Way grant that Georgie talked about. And then we got almost $4,000 in corporate donations. That's something new we're exploring, is working with the business community to give back. It was beyond our wildest dreams kind of what happened last year. Like we logged 575 volunteer hours. So I don't even know what increase that is in regards to like engagement in that capacity. We tripled our food capacity growing, and we were only growing in half of that garden. So we're hoping to get up to more like 5,000 or 6,000 pounds with the greenhouse. We had the adults with disabilities come by every week. We had people showing up. So the point of a co-op garden is there's no commitment. So you can come once over the season, you can come all season, and it's really up to you. So really decreasing barriers. Our kids camps came by. We had 43 kids in camp the year before, up to 106, and now we're at 130 this year. So just that engagement is just going through the roof. Youth educators grew in the hydroponic towers, and then this greenhouse is 1,000 square feet. So we're really looking to develop climate resilient growing, but also education. So just a new way of teaching kids how to grow. Some photos of last year. Yeah, I'm gonna pass it over to Isabel to talk about the market.
Yeah, most of you probably shop at the farmers market. At least I see some familiar faces. So we, with the LFI, we host 8 market days a year, 12 in the winter, 26 in the summer. And we're ranked as one of the top 5 BC farmers markets based on the revenue that we generate. We did an economic impact study, I think 2 years ago, and we pumped $8.2 million into the local economy. That's measured with the farmers market just in the summer on First Street, the Farm and Craft Market on Grizzly Plaza as well. And then it also accounts for the money that goes into neighboring businesses because people come downtown and then stumble into other stores. So yeah, pretty huge impact. Last year we hosted an Indigenous market in collaboration with the Indigenous Friendship Society and Tourism Revelstoke. And then the very last market in October, we were lucky we had nice weather, and we hosted a little harvest market with support from CBT. And so, yeah, our goals are to increase the capacity and meet the demand. We usually have a waiting list for vendors that want to join between June and September. And so, yeah, we're trying to classify the farmers market as a critical food infrastructure and then secure ways to go forward. So yeah, just a couple highlights. The nutrition coupon program is organized by the BC Farmers Market Association. It runs from June till, for our case, till the end of October. In 2021, we reimbursed $23,000 in nutrition coupons, and last year it was up to $41,000. So a huge increase, and that's mainly due to demand in town, but it's also because the program on a provincial level has grown pretty significantly, and the provincial support has been able to budget that increase. The impact on local businesses is pretty huge too. Any summer we manage between 120 20 and 150 vendor applications. That's majority of them are small businesses, and then like 20 or so community groups that usually attend the farmers market as well. Yeah, and then on a tourism level, we see about 400 to 2,000 tourists per market day. I think it's like one of the easy stops to do when you're visiting Revelstoke. Yeah, and it's like a social place where people can come for free. We see a lot of seniors, a lot of people that maybe feel a bit isolated. They just come and spend the Saturday morning at the farmers market and just be part of the community.
Perfect. And then maybe you skipped over this point because you don't like talking about yourself, but Isabel's really elevated herself on the provincial level. So she's sitting on the BCAFM board of directors. I think your second year now.
Yes.
And then also joined that CBT food task force. So just having great representation for Revelstoke, but it also keeps our ears to the ground of what's going on. Okay, I need 10 minutes alone to talk about food commons, but we're going to kind of fly through the key things that have happened. So Teal, I think, has presented. So it's that 1.8 acres that we signed a lease for 10 years with the city. We've had 12 months of food commons infrastructure coordinator. We have funding till about November this year. So now we're fundraising to see how we can continue that role going forward, keep the momentum going. We've secured $500,000 in grants, which is incredible. A lot of this, though, comes without that important admin money to actually execute. So we've been tirelessly fundraising to get that done. We're getting an aggregate, which is a 20-foot CCAM that also has refrigeration in it and processing space, a 42-foot dome greenhouse. And right now we've already planted in the ground, which is incredible. We thought it would be like 3 years before the soil was ready to go. And then we have community members planting in community garden boxes. And then we're waiting on a social enterprise study, feasibility study, and the point is to really decrease dependence on grants. Like, how can we use this space to generate some income to support it? This is the most recent kind of site map that we have. So kind of the space with the 4 quadrants. We're working on that side for this year and where everything's being developed. Still, we need around another $250,000 to execute that. Okay, so I'm going to move on and do Mel's role. So really, we wanted Mel to come and talk. She was the food security coordinator before Sam and Georgie, before we had the role, and really to talk about the evolution of what that role has been. So role began in 2015 as a project of Community Connections, focused on implementing the food security strategy 2014, so the first iteration of it. So really the focuses were food recovery program development, public outreach and education, supporting local producers, processors, and retailers, establish new farmers market to meet local demand and organizing capacity, establish the Farmers Network, which we are still running, and then the school breakfast program development. So the funding was around $10,000 a year based on projects. In 2021, the Economic Opportunity Fund used to match city's funding contribution, bringing core funding for the role to $20K a year. At this time, the living wage in Revelstoke was $19.50. So the role was administered by Community Connections. And we all know in 2022, that role was eliminated at Community Connections with some restructuring, which is where LFI stepped in. And we've taken on this role now, going into our 3rd year of this role. In 2025, the rate of national food insecurity has risen to 25%, 24.4% in BC alone. That's 1 in 4 British Columbians struggling to find their next meal. So the number of individuals accessing the Revelstoke Food Bank has more than tripled since the pandemic. And the cost of food has risen more than 30%. The living wage in Revelstoke has gone up 42%, so up to $27.80. So we're really seeing, and I think that's why we're seeing such high engagement with our programs and what we're developing, is because people are really looking for those ways to access food and learn more, access the food. So next slide. Okay, perfect. Significant growth and competition for food security funding has developed over the years as more communities develop positions, programs, and projects at all scales. So for example, a recent funding competition with Food Banks Canada for core infrastructure and food processing saw $17 million in ask for a $3 million pot. That's only an 18% success rate. So as far as the food security coordinator long game, the role serves as a primary representative of our local food system within the region and province, a necessary role for connecting a remote community with the resources and relationships to help it thrive. And it's the implementation of a food security strategy, which is tied to the OCP and strategic priorities, as well as the poverty reduction strategy, which I know we're waiting on another iteration of that coming in the next few months, and is an ongoing role that benefits from continuity. It needs to be a good enough job to stick to it in order for it to have impact. So our intention right now is to just let you guys know the history, the work that we're doing to try to fill these gaps and create more opportunity for people to access not only food, but the skills to grow their own food. We're seeing a lot more gardens. Even walking down the street, you'll see those new metal boxes. I think it's way more accessible for people to grow and have the access to the tools they need. So really looking to increase what we can offer people to have that autonomy where they get their food from. Yeah. Is that it?
You ready for questions?
Yeah, any questions?
So I'll go around the table and see if any councilors have any questions. First of all, I got two councilors online. Councilor Devlin, Councilor Lucia, do you have any questions?
Nothing from me, Your Worship. It's good to hear that these programs are moving forward and that we will have to collaborate in order to help try to find some more sustainable funding, I think, for these programs, as they are very important.
Appreciate it, Councilor Lucia.
Thanks, Marcels. Yeah, I want to thank everybody at LFI for all the work that you all do in the community. What would be the best thing that us as councilor, the city, can do for you guys moving forward within the next year and in the next council term to help you guys grow as an organization?
So I think for us, where we struggle is even knowing how to navigate the city, like what department to go to, who to talk to. Even right now with, asking for an increase in capacity, what are the templates we use to kind of put forth and kind of make the case? So I think the support of just knowing who we can go to ask for certain things. What we talked about with critical food infrastructure is a trend we're seeing across Canada, which is like, hey, maybe that's something we can do too. I know BCAFM is putting together a study of just across BC, all the ways that there's deeper partnerships between municipalities and farmers markets so that we're not stuck Googling and trying to find okay, what does this city do? And what does that city do? And what can we do? So that's coming. But then what do we do with that information? And who do we go to? And what are the steps that we can take to navigate? I think is what we need. Because we're often kind of left being like, what do we do?
And we can help you with
Yeah.
that, either through corporate or through academic.
Yeah.
We can help you with that.
Yes,
Go
and
ahead.
we work closely with Megan.
Yeah, that I was going to suggest, of course, our key contact person, Amanda, would be Megan
Yeah.
McIsaac. Myself.
Yeah.
For sure. Lori Donato,
Yeah.
Director of Recreation. She's been involved in this in the land assembly part, but as default, always myself.
Okay.
But
Very good.
I'm glad to hear you've already reached out to Megan. Thank you.
Yeah. And Janet offered some really valuable information when I kind of just threw a question out in an email. She's like,
Janet's great, yeah.
let me help you. So it's, we have a path forward on some of it.
Any other councilors? Councilor Cho.
I just want to congratulate you guys on everything you're doing.
Thanks.
These numbers are wild.
Yeah.
Significantly more than I thought you guys were doing.
Yeah.
All of you. So, yeah, keep up the good work and we'll
Thanks.
help where we can. This is significantly larger than I thought it was.
And last year we donated just all the food to the food bank. We didn't know what was going to come out. This year we're looking to do a seniors box to low-income seniors to mitigate them going to the food bank to try to get access to it. So we're trying to find ways to just disperse into the community, just make it feel a little nicer for people. It goes onto a community food table. They can choose what they want. Working with the kids. Maybe we get a kid that comes in and does a study with us in the greenhouse. We're just looking at really cool ways to engage in different ways like that. So yeah, thank you for recognizing that.
Happy to help you guys out with deliveries if you need.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Right?
take you up on it.
Councilor Lucia, you have your hand up, and I'd like to go to the other two councilors. They haven't spoke yet, and I'll come back to you. Councilor Orlando, you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, thanks, and congratulations on all the success, and thanks for the great presentation. My question is, same as Councillor Lucio had, is just how can the city continue the partnership with you on, different facets of what you're doing, whether it's the food commons or whether it's, a different department with, road closures and whatnot for the farmers market or electricity, those kinds of things. Yeah, just seeking if there's any more detail on what you guys, what's working and what we can improve on in that interface. If there's any more specifics that you have, I'd love to hear.
I mean, do you want to talk about the emergency planning proposal?
Yeah. So one thing that we've been looking into specifically in the food security is implementing some food emergency preparedness. And that's a recommendation in the city's food security strategy. So how can we collaborate with the city to either develop a food security emergency preparedness strategy or incorporate it into existing emergency preparedness strategies that are coming out, like the heat emergency response plan. So we've reached out to some consulting groups and they've provided us with proposals for plans like that. And yeah, just figuring out the best way that we can kind of bring this food piece into emergency preparedness. That's one specific. And we've been working a little bit with Megan. But at this point, we don't really have, it's more of just a concept and yeah, developing some specific action items that we can work with.
The thing with food and emergencies is you need to feed people while they're here, handling the emergency, and people can't come back until there's food. So your grocery store's up and running, your restaurants, there's access to food. So how do we protect those assets, protect the businesses that would feed people during the emergency and when people come back? So there's a lot of layers to it, which is why we've gone to the consultant. It's a little beyond what we can do. So yeah, we would welcome anyone who wants to kind of meet with this consultant or just learn more about it or see the proposal and what's the right avenue to kind of get it to people. Because yeah, it's something that has been talked about for years and years, and we're trying to actually make that happen now.
So that's going to be a broad scope thing,
Yeah.
From our emergency planning perspective, we can meet with you and kind of what's going to be the best.
Yeah.
Right? You have a follow-up, Councilor?
No, just other than, if, because what you are doing crosses over different city departments, I can understand how it can seem challenging to know who to approach first on something, but just as long as we can have that partnership agreement and that, if your first point of contact can, direct those appropriately or connect you with, committees working on emergency planning or economic development initiatives or practical stuff. I think, strengthening that and making sure, that you're getting those points of contact and be able to move that forward, because I can see how it would be challenging because, you ask one person, they're like, I'm not sure, that's somewhere else. And then how do we manage that? So it's good to hear the efforts to continue that collaboration.
Councilor Steveners, comment?
I'm happy to let Councilor Lucio go first.
All right, Councilor Lucio.
Thank you. Yeah, I just got two more questions, so I'll toss them out now. With the water metering project that the city is undertaking, how do you guys see that affecting the programs that you're running? And my understanding is that our Winters Farmers Market isn't a BC approved farmers market. So are you guys looking to take steps to have the Winter Farmers Market be a BC approved market?
I can talk. So we were just looking at the water restrictions. Water metering, we've been keeping our eye on, so we're not quite sure when that's coming into effect and how it would affect farm versus market garden versus backyard garden. I think still needs to be determined. We want to kind of protect food production at every level. And we're even, as far as like water restrictions and access to water, we're likely to go down that road this year. So we're going to be working on some public education to support kind of the city messaging in regards to food. And how you can still water your gardens and farms and whatnot. And then, do you want to speak to the?
So the winter market is not eligible to be part of the BC Farmers Market Association because we allow farmers to buy produce from other farms and bring it in just to increase the volume of stuff that they can sell and make it more worthwhile, because we have farmers traveling from the Shuswap to Long Drive, and so we want to make sure that we can also offer more to shoppers than just your storage carrots. So yeah, that's why Georgie is working on the winter nutrition coupon program that cannot be part of this. I don't think the winter market will ever be part of the BC farmers markets. It's a tricky balance between what we allow in as like vendors to sell, what shoppers want, and where we draw the line, because realistically, the farmers with chickens, they have eggs year round, they have to go somewhere. So we provide an outlet, which is really important for them. And we have farmers that come from like as far as Merritt last winter, because it's the only market nearby that continues on a regular basis. So that regular outlet, like the mushroom grower too, she can't just hit pause just because it's winter. So we gotta keep going. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think from a food security perspective, it's been important for that market to be able to offer a wider selection than what can be grown by farmers, because we have such a limited growing season. And then it allows them, like they're doing their best to source these these items that they resell, you know, from other farms that share values. And so maybe it's still kind of it's a great option for shoppers. It's even though it's resold, it's a bit, you know, higher quality product, more sustainably produced product than maybe the grocery store. So it keeps our options open, and it's better for vendors and it's better for consumers is how we feel.
Well, it's community-based, and we appreciate the fact that we were trying to do that. I think that's an important aspect. My parents were in both the summer and the winter market, and I was in the summer market years ago selling my son's corn. I'm going to get to that in a minute, just about the coupon program. But I'm just going to go back to Councillor Lucia and see if there's a follow-up question after hearing the responses.
No, that covered everything. Thank you.
Councillor Steveners?
Yeah, I just thank you. I just wanted to better understand the goal of classification of a critical food infrastructure.
So the research we've done, there could be a monetary incentive. Like we spent $6,000 in permits, and we have a very small budget for this market. We do an incredible amount of work with that budget that we have. But it also talked about, you know, it's classified as events, which, you know, I hate using the word frivolous, but, you know, this maybe isn't taken as seriously. So it even spoke about just kind of the attitude towards the market as just this critical place for food exchange and where farmers can come to sell direct to consumer, with everything from planning. So it seems to be a new trend. I saw around 29% of markets in Canada are starting to get that classification. And I think that, yeah, let's see what's possible. And we just want to keep continuing to meet the demand.
Great, thank you. And if I may, just a quick follow-up question, not related to the original question, but earlier in your presentation, you mentioned social enterprise. And I'm just wondering if you could explore, maybe elaborate a little bit more on what models you've been exploring.
So we're still waiting for the final copy of this social enterprise study. We've seen kind of an initial version with some numbers. It would cover everything. So it would be specific to the food commons to use these assets that we have. And it's everything from tours for tourism to food production to workshops and leadership to do we sell our own pickles, or do we process our own food and make some money that way as well? So we're still kind of waiting for those final numbers, and she had a 5-year projection. So more to come. And the whole idea is that we decrease our reliance on grants. As we've seen, those grants are becoming harder and harder to get.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. I appreciate the explanations. Thank you.
I mean, thanks for that. I'm just going to encourage you to always explore new opportunities, even things that have never been heard of before.
Yeah.
Let's ask the questions. And my comment usually is, how do we get to yes? So exploring that sort of thing. This council's been really instrumental in going to the Ministry of Health, especially Minister Osborne, to encourage her to continue on with the program where people get their little things where they can get free food, right? That's important. I saw that when I was bringing corn into our community. People had to work to get those things, and it wasn't a freebie, which empowered them to use them for fresh food. So anything that we can do with a coupon program, nutrition program, whether it's independent and you're doing it in the winter, we can have conversation with you as to how we can support that. And I'm not necessarily talking about us giving you taxpayer money, but maybe funding alternatives. But the same thing when you go to talking about can we make pickles, that sort of thing. I know there are people in the community that are adept at doing that, that maybe they can teach others, where we get volunteers to come and do that. They get to take a portion home, and we have a portion that goes out to sell. I know that you've got the 42-foot all year round greenhouse coming. When that comes, give me a call. I want to come volunteer and put that together. Because I want to put a 15-foot in my backyard. And I want to learn, but I also want to be part of what you're doing, because I think having year-round the ability to figure out how we can grow year-round, even if we're only producing it for those in need, is imperative for this community. And my last question, I got asked this question on Wednesday on the radio show, was how do we keep the price of lettuce low enough for people to survive? And I said, well, we do a number of things. First of all, I talked about the coupon program, talked about the food bank, and we talked about supporting the farmers market as well as our local grocery stores. Because if our local grocery stores are getting the support and they bring the produce in every day, and we think that we might be able to reduce that price year round versus just whatever. So you're talking about fresh food, that sort of thing. But there are so many things going on in the community due to LFI, and I appreciate those. Teaching people how to feed themselves is really imperative. So we as a council are grateful to everything that you're doing. And as a community, I can tell you, people are enthused. When you see the volunteers coming out, 575 volunteer hours to do things, it's pretty incredible. So thank you for that. Isabel, thank you for the way that you're running the farmers market. People are grinning ear to ear. I'm tripping over dogs, bikes, and people trying to get my produce. But I look at that and go, that's what brings community together.
I can clear the road for you if needed.
Anyway, appreciate that. Georgie, welcome.
Thank you.
We're excited. So thank you again, ladies. Appreciate all that you do for our community.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, council, if you will support me, I'd like to move up the RCMP quarterly summary because Sergeant Rondo is here, and I'd like him to be able to do that presentation. Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. Sergeant, come on forward.
Do I get out of jail free card?
You can get in jail free card.
I didn't print any of those before I got here, unfortunately. Your Worship, Council, thank you for having me stand in place of Staff Sergeant Dodds, who is away today, feverishly prepping for the big Moto X here this weekend here in Revelstoke. He's very excited, and I'm sure most of you guys, or if not all of you guys, are well aware of his involvement and his family's involvement in this motorsport. So, anyways, yeah, he's feverishly working to get that put together and have it successful. Unfortunately, I won't be as animated as Staff Sergeant Dodds, but I'll do my best to uphold his title here. So yeah, just a quick overview of 2026 Q1 quarterly report from the RCMP detachment here, and I'll go over the presentation, and of course always welcome to questions, and I will do the best to answer them as I can, and I may have to defer some stuff to Staff Sergeant Dodds, as although I'm in the know of a few things, he is a very busy fellow as well at the detachment and has lots of stuff on the go that only he's got going on. So, Q1 in brief, we've actually seen a fair uptick in files, and I'll get to that here in a minute. In this last year, in this last quarter, actually compared to years past, I'm just speculating that we have a few more people. I think maybe because maybe of a crummier snow year in some other parts of the communities. We've had a lot more people here in the community this year. Of course, this is from January to the end of March, so it's during prime wintertime season. I'm going to flip, actually go right to the, this is just quarter one brief. So yeah, we'll just, this is the brief and then it goes into the next one. So the first ones are persons investigations. As you can see from years past, 2023 was a little higher at 179, then actually dropped last year to 166. And this year now we have 210 total persons investigations. A notable uptick we've seen was in assaults and 911 assistance and well-being checks, as well as mental health. I'm not sure if it was with the weather or whatnot this winter. We definitely had more mental health calls than we have in the past. And yeah, the assaults were up, and I would like to attribute that goes from everything from domestic violence to a local fight at the last drop or whatnot that may be, that people have scattered by the time we get there, sort of thing. But of course, we encompass it as what we're called to go see or what we found when we're investigating this. And that's also partly due to some staffing changes we've had. I'm sure Staff Sergeant Dodds, I think I was here last time when you mentioned that we've added like a new office manager that has got a long history of records clerk stuff. So she's been training the office staff and ensuring we capture all of our scoring and stuff correctly so we can report the right offenses and whatnot of what we're actually doing. So there's a whole thing behind that I can't get into because I'm not an expert, unfortunately. Now into property offenses, we did have some more break and enters reported this year than we've had in years past, substantial. Partly because there was a couple of unsavory people that were kind of around and we're bringing some people around, but they have long since gone and our calls have thankfully went down. Of note, one of the things I'd like to mention from a break and enter that happened late 2025 is we were able to execute a search warrant on a property. The matter's still under investigation, so I can't speak too much more, but we actually recovered like a $30,000 stolen side-by-side here in town and gave it back to the owner.
Wow.
So that was a big win for us. It was the beginning of February. It was well done by the members. So again, it's still under investigation and so on and so forth. Other property offenses are sort of the same. Theft motor vehicles. I did the stats for theft of bicycles. There wasn't very many either. So we do have some people that inquire, some media people inquire. They tend to be like to know about the bicycle incidents in town stuff. So it's kind of neat. Quarter one warning and violation tickets are so the warning and so these are actually the notice and orders are first. So basically they're either written warnings or they're notice and orders, and a notice and order can be asking someone to get a vehicle inspected or have their tint taken off their windows or tail light fixed. Could be just something as simple as that. I don't have the exact numbers here. I just have Staff Sergeant Dodd's nice graphs. And most of our stuff that we wind up doing is in downtown and Arrow Heights. They just seem to be more congested and we are getting more calls for service out that way. The violation tickets, we've had a very successful start to the quarter. Lots of downtown violation tickets for vehicles and as well as Arrow Heights, as well as also on the Trans-Canada East and West and some other miscellaneous tickets. We have received multiple requests and we try and do our best for in town. We receive multiple requests from, of course, all the schools during school zone. We try and make an effort to do school zone patrols in all the schools as best we can, or focus on maybe one day we do Columbia Park, the next day we do Arrow Heights, the next day is then the high school and Begbie View. We try and spread the wealth and, of course, keep the children and traffic safe. And of course, as we have going on right now through Southside there with the road closures, we had the same thing last year where we have people that are driving through and the increased volume of traffic has increased complaints to everybody, the city, us, and whatnot. So impaired driving, we have another successful year. I mean, 2023, it obviously shows that it's much higher, but we still have almost 30 impaired investigations in this last quarter by general duty members. Of note, one of our local members, Constable Justin DeHaan, had won an award for 2025 for being a gold tier impaired driving investigator. And he got 24 impaired investigations over the last year. So, wow. So yeah, and we have others that are quite tight. They're in the teens and whatnot too. But Constable DeHaan is leading the charge, and he's trying to get the gold tier again this year. So he's been been pretty good. And there's a couple of new junior members that are also picking up that torch too. So it's very good to see. Municipal collisions, we have 30 reported over the first quarter. Some are collisions that we attend. Some we've dealt with this, and I dealt with this in my last posting as well too. Sometimes like a minor fender bender, just for example, like I've had one where I've hit a deer with my own personal vehicle. I don't have to call police to investigate. I just call ICBC, put in a claim number, send them a couple photos, send them one of the deer on the side of the road, and they're like, okay, you hit a deer. In Alberta, a lot of times when people come here, they'll get involved in a fender bender, they won't bother to get back, and their insurance tells them they have to report it to police. So then we get a call after the fact, and sometimes we've never attended, we've never been called. So we try and capture that truly, like we say, we take it at face value what the person reports, but at the end, then we put that we were never notified at the time, we've never attended, so we can't verify that this is accurate either. I don't have the exact stats on what those calls are to the actual collisions that we've attended either. RMR and SAR callouts. We had quite a few SAR callouts, about the average as normal. They were absolutely instrumental. I'll give them props. I mean, they're always instrumental. Every SAR callout's awesome. But we had a person in need and some trouble that we had to have find, and their dog person found them there, and it was about a month ago, and they're very awesome. They worked with us and our drone team and our dogs as well too. So brought that to a safe conclusion. RMR calls, thankfully no missings and no worse than that, no fatals this year at RMR, so it was very good. And just some property files, some missing skis, jackets, stuff like that. So on to administrating and staffing. So this part here with complainant calls and the rules, these are what like our front counter staff and our dispatch and whatnot deal with. So we've had quite a bit uptake in complainant calls municipally from 590 to 673, but it's almost on average from 2024. So, and then our rule calls actually went down just a little. Prisoner count is about average. Phone calls, looks like it's down from 2023 quite a bit. And our counter calls about average. Our police information checks, however, has went up quite a bit. Of course, more people that have, more volunteers, SAR, fire hall, whatnot, everyone of course requires a criminal record check or a police information check. So they've been very busy with that. And our transcription hours are slowly, steadily going down, and they are using now, we have been authorized in the last couple of years to use AI to help transcribe the statements instead of a person sitting there listening to the whole statement and going word for word. They generally put it through the AI, and they're actually fairly accurate, but the members also are still required to verify everything for the accuracy and make amendments as required. So on the staffing side, as of right now, we're looking pretty good. Things can always change though in the RCMP world. Out of actually a total of 17 regular members or 14 constable, actually, I'm not sure why he's got 14 municipal, I guess 14 and 3, sorry, 17. Staff Sergeant Dodds had built this, and I did look at it a bit. Now I'm reading it, I'm a little flustered, but we do have 17 members overall. We have 16 members overall. The full strength is 17. Out of the constables, there's 13 overall, and there's 12. We have one vacancy, but at this point in time, we have 2 off on leave right now, 1 off on pat leave, and we'll expect the person back on pat leave in November. And we just welcomed 3 new members to the detachment. Constable Rob Dunlap from Cranbrook. He's worked with Staff Sergeant Dodds actually in 2 previous detachments. He brings 20 years of service, and from federal work to small detachment in Pemberton and to large detachment in Cranbrook. So he brings a wealth of knowledge. He's working 2nd block right now. We have Constable Nolan Cummins, who's got about 2 weeks service from Depot. So he's here, and we have a trainer, and he's loving it. He's originally from West Kelowna, and backstory of that is Staff Sergeant Dodds knows his father-in-law from Vernon. So funny story. Yeah. And then we have one more, Constable Joelle Price, who is she was on leave without pay for a while, just for family things, and she's returning to work. Actually, she's returned to work this week. So we've added 3, but there could be changes coming down the pipe where we may have some outgoing people, but there's nothing confirmed. I'm sure Staff Sergeant Dodds will touch on that this next meeting with Mayor and Council. Next on to is our annual performance planning, or APP as we like to say it. As usual, we're sticking with what regular priorities are in the community, unless I believe Staff Sergeant has talked about this. I just started entering all this into our system today. Traffic enforcement, speeding in the municipality, plus other offenses, cell phones, seatbelts, whatnot. Traffic enforcement, impaired driving, it is one of the driving factors. I'm actually personally amazed in this area of how many impaired drivers that our members get. Like, it's usually one a night or one every couple night. I come in and review a file, whether depending on the outcome or how impaired the person is. So they're out there and the members are pulling them off the road, which is super awesome. Property theft from auto. I'm going to add theft of bicycles to this as well, kind of a general theft. General theft of this, just because although we haven't seen it quite yet, we do tend to get some bicycle thefts, of course, well, as the weather's getting warmer and bikes are, of course, getting more expensive. So it doesn't take much to have a bicycle cost more than $5,000 these days. And the last priority we like to have is police community relations. Last year I had it more for, it was more kind of a rural patrol thing where we used to get what's called seasonal policing budget, and we would get out, and we actually got out on the boat about 6 times last year on Lake Revelstoke and Arrow Lake, as well as myself and Constable DeHaan went to the vintage ride for the Revelstoke Snowmobile Club and attended there. We're just in attendance, and we set up the speed board when they did the drag races so the guys could see how fast their snowmobiles are going when they're going at the end, which is kind of neat. But we get invited to a lot, and we're very thankful for this, but we get invited to a lot of community events, whether it be the Devon Gale Memorial Volleyball Tournament, to the Bicycle Rodeo, or there's just a magnitude of stuff, and it's really encouraging. We're very thankful that the community is phoning us, say, hey, can you send a member to this, or can you guys volunteer for this? So I want to capture that on our next APP as well too, because I believe it's a very, very important function, and I've been very happy, been very blessed to work in communities that are very supportive of police. So. And last slide for us here, go to the next one, is the new Health IM mental health screener. I'm not sure if Staff Sergeant Dodds has talked about this before. He was the lead, and he still is the lead contact for Southeast District. So everywhere, basically 100 Mile and, Clinton and Clearwater South in the province over to just before you start down the Fraser Canyon. We go live on May 27th. I've begun training some members already on this, and it's pretty neat. It doesn't, like, it's a decision-making aid. Like, they will never, you don't punch in a bunch of buttons that says you must take this person to the hospital or you must let them go. It's a decision-making aid. It's also a data bank where we can program in a person's triggers or things that like help calm them down. So, and this is province wide. So if we have someone off the highway here and they're from Merritt, and we've never dealt with the person before, if we get their name ahead of time, we can punch it in on this Health IM app and we say, oh, okay, so in the mental health calls, you talk about his dog Fluffy, and that'll help calm things down. So there's things like that. And then also, when we're done doing the screening, when it's safe to do so, again, we're not going to stare on our phones if there's a violent thing going on, punching buttons. We do it when it's safe.
Yeah.
However, when the person is ready to go to the hospital, we can proceed and submit. It submits it electronically right to QVH here, or to Vernon Jubilee if we have to take them straight to Vernon Jubilee. So it's really neat. They get a big printout form of what our risk is and whatnot. Interior Health, of course, is on board. Just about every other sub-district in the Southeast has went live. I think we're oddly enough, that we're the last one to go live, even though Staff Sergeant Dodds has headed it off. But yeah, we go live May 27th, and lots of positive reviews from the members and lots of positive reviews of it being used so far in other areas. So we're very excited to have that on board, because I'm sure maybe you guys may or may not know, mental health is a big issue, and it's not going to go away, and it's just going to keep coming to the forefront for a lot of people. So, and that'll be stuff we'll be dealing with, of course. So,
Thank you. Appreciate that. Council, any questions? Seeing Hearing none, I want to say, thanks, Derek. I appreciate what everyone's doing in the community with the temporary speed limit in my neighborhood. I'm seeing the patrols, seeing the cars stopped, seeing the speed board, looking at that sort of thing and going, that makes a difference. I get to sit on my deck and watch as people go by, and then I see the kids on their bikes trying to get a registered number on the speed.
Yeah, it'll pick up bikes. Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for what you do. Appreciate it, and thanks for coming today.
Thank you guys very much. Oh.
Have a question?
And thank you guys for all your support. Have a
All
great
right,
day.
Thanks, appreciate that. All right. Okay, we are going to move on to HCMA delegation. Mr. Parliament, you want to make a statement before we?
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Mayor. So today we have joining us Darren Harding from HCMA. Darren presented the survey results on Tuesday evening to the Multi-Purpose Facility Committee meeting. So there are some folks in the room that have heard this presentation. Today is to allow council to hear the presentation, which will be shared in our third presentation, which will be next Wednesday, 6 till 9 o'clock at the NPR, where we're going to share the survey results to the public, general public. So it is a call to all residents to attend next Wednesday evening's presentation. It is open to everyone, of course. Today is to do a presentation for council and then have you ask the consultants some questions as we prepare for next Wednesday's launch with the public. So with that, I'll turn it over to Darren. Welcome.
Welcome, Darren.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can, thank you.
That's great. I believe I am sharing my screen for the presentation, so I will share this. Okay, yeah, glad to be here with you and to be able to share the survey results. So just to give you a brief overview of what I'll run through here today is recap a bit on the purpose and the outreach, the methodology of the survey and how it was distributed to the community, results, who participated, the results of what we saw, and then summarizing what we heard. And so in speaking towards what the purpose of what this work was, we all know the Revelstoke is nearing its end of life, and so the purpose of this survey was to gather community input on what the future of that should be and to test public response in terms of what types of amenities or scope or size or features that should be included within this. This work was intended to be based off of the phase 1 feasibility analysis and the council direction that was received prior to this work. So there were a number of steps that were taken in preparation for the launch of this survey. First and foremost, there was an advisory committee that was established that provide us guidance and direction as we prepared to engage the community. We prepared draft reviews with that committee and ran that past them, one in September, one in October of last year. We also came to council in November of last year to gain feedback. And then we also did a number of beta tests, one in December, one in February. These were both with the advisory committee and then also city staff to be able to get the bugs out of the system and make sure that we were understanding it properly. And one of the things that came out of that was a large discussion around the existing forum. What is the status of the existing forum and what are the possibilities around renovations or what's the current condition? And so that led into number 4, which there was an info session that was held to educate the public in terms of the current condition of the existing forum. And so that was a key piece in educating in preparation for this. And then during the survey, we also held seniors chats to help connect with that group as well. And there were a wide range of social media and city communications throughout the months of February and March. And to be more specific in those regards, there were 2 side-by-side initiatives and efforts, one offline, one online, to try and reach as broad of a group as possible. So posters were placed throughout the community, 114 scans of QR codes. There were advertisements that were sent throughout, radio advertisements, newspaper, mass postcard mail out to residents in March. There was a in-person seniors coffee chat that was advertised through the Senior Center Association, emails both to community user groups specifically, and then also to the facility advisory committee members. There was a spot in council chambers and 2 mayor's announcements. So those were the offline. And then online, there was the Talk Revelstoke page, which received 1,900 page visits in the month of March. There are both platforms, Facebook and Instagram, with a large number of posts and stories across 2 or 3 accounts. LinkedIn, 2 YouTube videos, newsletters, and then website banners on a number of websites. And so all of this basically in attempt to reach as wide range of people as possible. And there was a considerable amount of attention that was captured through this, which was great, which feeds into our results here coming up here shortly. Just to recap how the survey worked and to remind people how it went, but you know, at the very beginning of the survey, individuals were first asked if they supported or opposed the replacement of the forum. And so if they supported, they were then followed it with some additional questions. And so they were given, they were asked to select a based facility option. And then they were allowed to layer in additional features, things like seating and things like that. And then they were asked to rate potential sites and provide site priorities. And all of those along the way, they were given capital cost implications as they made those selections. If people chose no and they opposed, then they skipped directly to section 3. And all along that way, they're asked if they had a preference for a smaller arena. And then in section 3, they were asked about tax implications and also asked about their level of support for P3 explorations in the process for gaining additional funds or additional partnerships. And then lastly, we gained information about those participants through the process. This is important to pause here for a second, because the way the Othello survey platform operates is there's a number of different ways that it measures, be it support, approval, consensus, those types of things. And so it's really useful in terms of the data as it comes out and helps us understand a bit better. And so, for example, in the support category, the way it does it is that there were a number of questions along the survey in which we asked them to provide a range of support or opposition. So we asked them, do you strongly support, moderately support, neutral, moderately oppose, or strongly oppose? And so in this category of support, a percentage is given to that. So if people selected strongly oppose, that's a value of 0. If they did strongly support, that's a value of 100. And so when we get to some of these slides later, I'll be able to speak to that's what it's meaning, is it's an accumulated value through that metric there. Approval is a lot more simple. It's basically yes, no, do you approve, do you support? Conflict is measuring the level of disagreement within the group. So if you have a wide range of people saying I strongly support or I strongly oppose, it's starting to measure that level of conflict. And then consensus is combining both support and conflict and providing the strength of an option around that. And then voter percentage is also quite simple. It's just the percentage of number of participants that selected an item. And then the last thing that we also analyzed were comments. At the end of each section of the survey, we invited individuals to offer questions or comments if they had them. So is there anything we missed? Is there anything else you'd like to share with us? And there are roughly around 780 comments that were given. And so what we did is we read through every single comment and we tagged them with themes. And then we grouped those into themes. And then the most common themes we've summarized into this report. But the full comments are also available if needed. Okay, so into the response rate, we had roughly over 1,500 completed submissions. And in speaking with the Othello platform and also in our experience of working with a number of communities, this is a great number. Given the population, this is a great response. This other number up here in the top corner, 6,500 unique site visits, what that means is it measures the number of times people go to the site and click on it. And this happens in every survey. People are curious, so they go in, they read a couple questions, and then they leave. And they come back and they do a little bit more. And so this one, the fact that there's 6,500 is a really high number for this type of survey as well. So this tells us that this is an important topic for the community, and a lot of people are interested. Who participated in terms of age groups? The highest component was the 35 to 44, which isn't surprising. But what we wanted to see and we like to see is that there is representation from all different age groups. We also layered in, so the dark green bar is the number of respondents, and then the light green, we layered it against the consensus model just to make sure to see how it tracked against it, make sure that we were representing, getting fair representation across the population. It's good to see that it follows it roughly. Caregiver status was asked, and so roughly 53% are not caregivers, and then if you add up the remaining amounts, roughly 40% are caregivers of different ages of children. This was an important question to make sure we understood was who are the respondents and property ownership. They're asked who owns property, and so 81% owned residential and just under 7% owned commercial. So that was a good number to see. And then the question around their connection to Revelstoke. So 95% of respondents are year-round residents within Revelstoke. So good to see these are deeply rooted members within the community. How will the facility be used? 72% are adults. That was the largest component, which is to be expected. And then we asked if they were mostly participant or spectator, and it was over 50% was both in that regard. Just a note that this was not a mandatory to select option. And so if somebody left it blank, then we added this none category. So 13% left that blank, and same with over here, 14% left that question blank. We also asked them to share with us if they're affiliated with a club or sports organization or something like that to gauge the types of users that are participating in the survey. Largest component was the Nordic Alpine Ski Club, second most hockey, and then it goes down from there. And then there was also the other category, and all of these items over here represent the different types of uses that people reference. And so the great thing here is to visually see the breadth of users and what the different types of activities that are people are engaging in at these facilities and what they want to see. So moving into the questions. So the first question, as I said, was participants were asked, should the forum be replaced? And an overwhelming amount, 80% said yes, they support the replacement of that. So roughly 1,200 respondents. The second question was, okay, of those who say yes, what base facility option would you like to select? Now, they had to choose one of these, A, B, or C. And so option A was the base building plus a new curling facility. Option B was base building, and then you keep the existing curling. And option C was the base building only, and curling is no longer a service offering for the community. And so interestingly, highest percentage was option A, and then followed by option B. And so this gives us a little insight into that curling does matter for the community. At the end of this section, the comments that we collected, there were a couple of main themes, and some tensions that we started to collect out of some of the comments. And so key themes are affordability, curling came up, which we discussed, and then broader community use that came up quite a bit. So a desire for that broad use. And then some of the key tensions, which aren't surprising, is that we had some individuals who really wanted more capacity. Let's build for the future. Let's build the right size of building. And then we had others who felt let's keep this as minimal as possible. Let's make it affordability. And so that's to be expected. And we did see that kind of tension in the comments. Some other comments that came up that we noticed was a desire for some more options to choose from. We also saw the renovation comments bubble up as well, and then questions about fairness. So concerns around amenities benefiting only the Grizzlies or beyond. Then it moved into the additional features, and they were invited to ask for their level of support. So when I talked about the strongly support all the way through to strongly oppose, this is the percentage measurement that I'm referencing now. And so when people were asked of this, it was great that these all received, above average percent support in it. But gymnasium was the highest, followed by multipurpose room and fitness center, reaching the most amount of support across the community. Some of the comments that came out of here, some key themes was a strong desire for broader year-round recreation. That was an important piece for many people. Another thing that came up is some of the comments talked about a desire to make sure that we weren't duplicating any existing facilities. So some comments said, well, yes, I really want a gymnasium, acknowledging there are some other gymnasiums within the community at schools. And just let's double check and make sure that we're not duplicating anything and we're getting the highest value of facilities. And multi-use was most important. I guess in key tensions, some of them are very similar to the last ones, but one that's additional here is maybe a comment around a business case in terms of saying, okay, well, if we were to have selected the additional seating in that capacity, does it give us a stronger business case around events coming and there's a return on investment? And so there were some comments around that. And then phased options. If we can't afford it all now, can we build something now and then add later in the future? Then moving into the third portion of this segment was about the site and asking people about their priorities around the qualities and characteristics of a site. And so we asked them, which factor is your top priority when choosing where this new facility should be located? And so the top two equal, 34% both, was number one or two, location in downtown, and then also the ability for it to have enough space around it for it to grow with the community and evolve with the community. And so maybe we only can afford to build a portion of it, and then in the future we can add to it. Second highest priority was around cost and affordability. When we gave them three potential sites, we gave them Centennial Park, Publix Workyard, the Pine Ridge Crescent, and the Powerhouse Road. We asked them to rank those and give us a range of support. So from strongly opposed, strongly support. And highest level of support came with the Publix Workyard, close to the existing building. And then the most amount of opposition was the Centennial Park. And so some commentary that came out of that, is not surprising. There was a lot of concern around displacing some existing amenities that exist within the community. That's particularly around Centennial Park and even Powerhouse or things like that, where there are soccer fields, there's disc golf, there's green space, there's some of these beloved amenities that people are concerned about. If we were to place it there, where would the rest go? Practical issues bubbled up in terms of if it is some of these other places, is there an additional bridge that's needed to get there? Is there pressure there? Single road access, parking, those types of things. And so, yeah, those are some of the key things for the site. And so at this point in the survey, we asked them about the taxation. And so we asked them, of the people who said yes and approve and do want support a new facility, we asked them, after seeing this facility that you selected, how do you feel about the taxation, and how do you feel about paying an additional amount of taxes for that? And it was great to see 81% combined. So that's the 29% of somewhat support and 52% of strongly support. Adding those together gives us 81% for people who support additional taxes for this. So now looking at going back to those who at the beginning of the survey, they said, no, I do not support this. We did ask them, okay, if you don't support the replacement of a new facility, would you support the development of a smaller community level arena? It would just be a sheet of ice and some support. And 32%, the largest group, still opposed that. But there were a number of people that were neutral and somewhat and strongly supported that type of idea. And so the main themes that came out of those comments were affordability, still people thinking about the renovation option, what's available from a renovation standpoint, some concerns about the engagement process and statements of bias, and keeping it simple and not needing to add a lot of things onto it. And so the Othello Platform Survey, what it does, as I mentioned at the beginning, is it now takes all of that data and it provides the scenario with the highest level of consensus. So this is taking the support, it's also taking the conflict, it's taking a number of those things into consideration, and then it's providing this as the highest level of consensus. And so this is not to say this is a recommendation or this is what the community should build necessarily, but this is what this is taking the data and choosing that. And so based on the data, option A, highest level of support, and then adding a gymnasium, multipurpose room, and a fitness center. And if you were to add up that value, the total cost is just over $100 million. And then this is the breakdown of what would be included within that $100 million. And so then we checked in terms of willingness to play. So this disassociates from their specific facility that they created through the survey. And it says, imagining your preferred arena development, whether described above or not, what's the highest level of additional annual residential taxes you'd be willing to pay for this? And so we see a large percentage of people understand it and they support some level of additional taxes. And so this is adding all of these together, so the largest component, which is understandable and expected, is the lowest value, 200 to 300, is 22.5%. And then adding the other bars together gives you roughly 77% would support some level of tax increase. And then this no additional tax increase, that we saw that from those who said no to this. So this is a combined result. Some of the key themes that came up during tax and cost are similar to some of those things that I already mentioned, but affordability, right sizing. Some people wanted more information around long-term operating costs. We specifically chose not to include it. We kept it strictly to capital costs in terms of providing them dollar value to their decisions. But some people asked about that. The return on investment and having evidence-based decision was a reoccurring ask. And then some people, this is a fair question around, trade-offs. Does this mean if we invest in this, does this mean we have a deficit in other areas? So that was a comment that came up in some of the questions. Then we were asked about public-private partnership and would people support that? And 54% said they would support the exploration of a P3, and 36% said they would like to have more information and need a bit more information around that. So that's great to see support in that regard. People did note that they did want transparency through that process. There was a bit of concern that this now becomes a private venue or that there is this private revenue as well through Grizzlies. And so to summarize at the end, taking away that information, these are some of the key themes that we see out of that. But first and foremost, a strong support and strong directional mandate. Over 80% would support the replacement of the forum. Cost discipline is non-negotiable. People were very concerned about the affordability and how that's managed. People want to see the right size, that this is suiting the community in the right way. There was support for exploration of other ways of acquiring funding through partnerships or the P3. And then, fairness bubbled up quite a bit, and making sure that those who are contributing, those who are benefiting, all those different things are able to be reconciled. So with that, I will pause there and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Hartley? I'll just get you to stop sharing your screen if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You can see the other, see you online. Thank you. Again, any questions, any concerns? I could really appreciate the fact that you asked so many questions, but it's not surprising that people are asking what the overall costs are when it comes to operating as well. Any concerns after the survey? You know, you put everything out. Do you have any concerns with things?
No, in terms of concerns, the way we see the numbers as being quite favorable, and understanding that, I think the comment section was really helpful. We were able to understand and digest more of the nuances from the community, which is common in every type of survey. You'll get a wide range of responses from it. And so that was helpful to understand. And some of the key things that we learned from that is the reason why we give those open-ended questions is to understand if the same type of comment bubbles up a lot, then we know we didn't ask the right question. And so we didn't see that in this case. We didn't see an overwhelming theme of saying this wasn't represented in a way. So what we saw in that was just a wide range of comments and opinions and questions in it. And so it seemed like the questions that we asked were helpful. People understood it, and they were able to respond to it.
Appreciate that. I'll ask one last time. Any comments, questions, Councillor Chair?
Just some comments. This was presented to the multi-purpose facility 2 days ago? Yesterday?
2 days ago.
2 days ago. There was a motion that came out of that. Unfortunately, they didn't have quorum and weren't able to vote on it, even though it was seconded. The conversation was about the costs of different locations that were provided in the survey. The multipurpose facility learned that the cost to move the public works yard would be upwards of about $20 million. And after learning that, they made a motion to suggest looking and exploring QE Park as one of the future locations for the arena, as well as, is it Pine Ridge? Is that the only location? Although the Pine Ridge Crescent is private lands and will come down to a negotiation with a private landowner. I wanted to make sure that those were here.
Great. Councillor Lucio?
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to echo Councillor Cherry's comments. With the additional costs that weren't really outlined in the survey, with moving public works yard and a second crossing that could come of the Pine Ridge Crescent, the discussion kind of shifted over into Queen Elizabeth Park as an alternative location. That kind of hits that affordability and downtown location, as we already own that property.
Councillor Stevens.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little problematic and a little bit late to the game to be exploring new locations after the survey has already gone out and people have already weighed in, and now we're presenting a fifth option that was never even discussed originally. And then I think from a governance standpoint, if we don't have quorum at a meeting, why are we advancing a conversation when we don't have quorum?
Yeah. Okay, good. Any other comments? Councillor Orlando?
Just thank you, Marisol. Just for clarity, just comments or questions, or will there be further discussion after this? Or is this?
Unless you want to have further discussion after this, it was just to give us the presentation.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Sure, just a few comments. I did attend the Tuesday meeting, so was aware of the change to of the committee to talk about Queen Elizabeth Park or one of the Pine Ridge Crescent site. I guess my question is, if the site that received the most public support, the public works yard next to the existing arena, was not viable. Why was it included in the survey? And then furthermore, if the committee is expressing interest in other sites, what is our process then going forward to figure out that question? Because that was one of the few key questions in the survey was location. So I'm just seeking clarity, and I'm not sure if it's from consultants or committee members. I'm just wondering where we're going next with that one.
Do you have comment, Mr. Harding, regarding that?
Yeah, I do. So we spent a lot of time trying to think through this, and we acknowledged each different site had different types of attributes to it. And so what we did for the survey is we attributed a apples to apples site development dollar value, so that some sort of placeholder value was captured across all of the sites. And so acknowledging that each, we understood that the public works yard would have some relocation costs. Centennial Park would have foundation challenges. Other sites would have bridge infrastructure or utilities. And so we acknowledge each of them would have some level of complexity, but at this stage in a feasibility or at this stage of development, that would take a lot of effort to try and determine all of those different factors, the costs around those things. And so at this stage of the survey, we decided to keep it as a averaged cost. And we tried to make the wording within the survey that these are presented potential 4 sites to try and gauge some interest, not that these were the only 4 sites that would be evaluated in the process, and that we were trying to narrow down on the specific one. So those are some of the things that we were trying to, with the best information that we had at the time, to gauge interest from the public, learn about their key qualities and characteristics that they want to see in a site, learn from it at this point in time, and then take that moving forward. And so being able to understand their key priorities, their top first and second priorities, is really helpful as we shift to potentially other sites as well.
Yeah, just to follow up. Thank you so much, Darren, for the response. I guess the next question I have is what happens next then? For example, if the committee was attempting to put forward a recommendation to explore further other sites that were not on the survey that had previously been presented but didn't make the short list, what is our process to get there? And I would note that when you are making applications through Inspector of Municipalities and MFA, part of the supporting documentation they will be looking for are those consultation processes. And so, for example, the idea of moving it to Queenie Park, how would we support that direction or decision, or how would we show that there is support or lack thereof for those decisions? It's not clear to me what the next step is to that.
Go ahead, Mr.
Hood. That might be a question better suited, as a consultant group, we would approach it a certain way. That's not within our current scope, but might be a question better suited for Evan potentially. But I could share what a consultant would do if that was a mandate provided towards us.
Go ahead and share if you don't mind, and then we'll go to Mr. Borman.
Yeah, so what it takes is just that extra level of detail to go into a specific site. So understanding the actual site development costs that would be required within a site. So if this is Queenie, or if it's Powerhouse, or if it's another site, it's learning. Okay, where are the utilities that are brought there? What's the soil condition? What are the different parameters and constraints around that site, and getting that level of information from a geotechnical engineer or from a civil engineer, and then it becomes quantifiable, and then that can be provided as the direction of saying, if this is the choice to explore, these are the implications that are required for this site to get you to a developable site.
Great, appreciate that. Mr. Parliament, you have any comments?
Yeah, so further to that, when we originally, and I'm talking the committee, when we originally looked at sites, we had a list of 8, 9, 10 sites that were shared amongst staff internally. Staff recommended that we look at these 4 or 5 sites. It went to the committee. Committee looked at a long list and we narrowed it down and we decided at the time, let's include 4 sites, 3 of which is municipally owned, 1 is private. We chose Centennial. We did not consider Oscar. We chose Powerhouse, and we chose the existing site. We knew that based on what the survey would say, do we do a base like arena only? Do we do a base like arena plus new curling? We didn't know what the results would be. And if you go with a base like plus a new curling, you're going to need more room than the existing site. The existing site being the parking lot where the Revelstoke Forum sits. You're going to need more land with parking. You're going to have to go across the street. That means public works. That means there's going to be a displacement cost. This is a figure that has been suggested by our Director of Infrastructure, Steve Black. It's going to be roughly, and this is just a Class D, 20 million to displace public works. Where would it go? Well, the most logical choice would be Powerhouse. When the survey results came back and it was clear that there was an emphatic no to Centennial, now the committee's saying, well, maybe we should reconsider Queen Elizabeth to replace possibly Centennial coming off the list like Oscar came off the list. We are just trying at the committee level, trying to come up with other municipal lands that would meet this proposed development. We don't have a lot. We have Powerhouse. We have the existing site. If Centennial comes off and Oscar's already off, we're down to basically Queen Elizabeth Park. And so I believe the committee has asked staff to look into Queen Elizabeth Park if that's another viable option. But I treat this survey as a progressive step. We've got a better indication from the public what is preferred and not preferred in terms of a site. But I think we need to also ask ourselves, is there another site that's owned by someone else? Have we exhausted every other private site? I'm not sure about that. But this exercise to determine site location has to be methodically thought through. It doesn't necessarily have to be on our site. It just helps if the land is available because it keeps the costs down. But each site has its own challenges. Some have a brownfield attachment to it. Some are clean. In the case of the one private site, Pine Ridge, there is an opportunity to explore a possible second crossing. If we were to look at that, it's not exactly in the downtown. Another site would be awesome, but rejected was the CPKC lands next to the turnaround. We obviously know that is a severely contaminated site. That would take a lot of money. But further to the question on the cost to displace public works, if that would be the preferred location, that's another $20 million tab that we're going to have to come up with either through debt financing or some other way to fund and move that entire site to another location. It's a challenge for the multi-purpose committee to come up with 3 preferred municipal sites. Looks like we're going to be taking Centennial off if we follow the survey results and respect that. And we've already taken off Oscar. Long answer to a short question. Not easy, but I believe the committee is going to be looking at other sites, both public, Queen Elizabeth Park, or another private site.
Appreciate that. Councilor Devlin, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you for the presentation. Interesting. Good to see that there was a relatively large amount of engagement, and I would actually say more than relatively large amount of engagement for Revelstoke, for sure. It's better than I was expecting, if I'm going to be quite blunt about it. Generally, our engagement does not really hit with the public, so good to see. I would just kind of like to comment, and maybe caution might be the wrong word, but caution council that a survey result is not... Obviously, we want the survey, we want the information, it gives us a guiding light, but it is not absolute end-all and be-all. The preferred site that was voted on is not necessarily where a new multipurpose facility would have to go. It is not part of a referendum. It is not part of the democratic process. I mean, it is a part, but it's not the end all and be all of it. So discussing new sites, if we find out that adding $20 million to a project costs I think it would be silly to look at a survey and say, well, they want this option. It does come with a $20 million extra tab, so we should obviously do it because that's what was voted on a survey. That didn't reveal that because we didn't know that at the time. So, I mean, good to know that that would be the preferred option if it didn't come with the tab, but it does. And I think pivoting is good governance, and sticking to a survey that didn't cover every possible option would be not so much good governance, in my opinion. So just wanted to make that comment. Don't get too locked up in what the survey says. Obviously, we want to honor it as best we can, but there is going to have to be tough decisions made around the table that maybe do not go the way of the survey, because the survey can't know everything.
Great. Appreciate the comment. Mr. Parliament, next step. So going up to the public on the 20th, is that correct?
Yes.
And then will it be a time for that to come back, that engagement to council for further discussion?
Yes. In addition to that, Mr. Mayor, we're also anticipating the final engineering report on the assessment of the Revelstoke Forum. That will be coming, I believe, in June. We've reached out. We were hoping to have them available this week. It did not happen. And so they've asked for some more time. So that detailed report is forthcoming. We at the staff level continue to look for details on the recently announced federal grant that has dedicated billions over the next 10 years to municipalities for recreation complexes. We'll know more information on that. And we're trying to, at the staff level, get a better sense of pricing. And we know, especially with the RFP that has gone out for our affordable housing project, there is price compression in the marketplace. We'll have a better idea to ascertain exactly what the pricing of new construction for these facilities are. We're seeing as high as $1,000 a square foot. We're seeing as low as maybe $750, $800 a square foot. We'll get a better idea as we move toward the ultimate decision, which you will be discussing on May 26th, which is the referendum, and whether or not this council has an appetite to introduce a referendum question this fall or in 2027. Corporate officer will have a report before council looking at the timelines required. Separate discussion than today. We're talking about the survey today, but that will be discussed at the end of May in a regular council meeting on the timelines and how the legislation applies to a possible referendum question. Those are the immediate steps, but there's still a lot of work to do.
All right, appreciate that. Councillor Cherry, then Councillor Orlando, and then we're going to move on.
Thanks. One question that did come up at the multi-purpose facility committee was the total cost being $106 million and how long those kind of prices can be held. If you can, Darren, can you tell us about the redundancies that you have worked into this pricing menu?
Yeah, absolutely. So included in that cost, the base construction cost for that was $69 million. And then added on top of that was soft costs, design and construction contingencies, and then an escalation contingency of roughly $8 million. And so that is a placeholder value that, is a best guess in terms of, we know you're not building this tomorrow, so it doesn't do you any justice to tell you what a 2026 cost of this building is. It will be at some point in the future. And so this includes an estimate of, a range of a start date for that. And so that's taking roughly, current market is roughly around 5% annually of escalation costs for construction, and that goes up or down as we go. And so that took that into consideration to provide a bit of a buffer for escalation.
Follow-up, Councillor?
Yeah, somewhat of a follow-up. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. We do have a lot of information here in front of us. The community's been pretty forthcoming that they want a location that is somewhat downtown, as long as we don't lose our Centennial Park. I think that's great. It also shows that the community is willing to spend up to an extra $430 a year to get the facility that they want. I do want to tee up Mr. Parliament about what a P3 and a taxation model could look like. You had a pretty good description of it at the multipurpose facility. So
Yeah, so quickly, that's a whole other workshop. We are finding some very interesting financial models out in the marketplace when we talk about a P3. Conventionally, traditionally, a P3 means the private sector will design, build. Sometimes they maintain, operate, and finance. Sometimes they just design, build. Most cases, a P3 involves the asset retaining to the ownership of the municipality, the taxpayer. Most P3s are local government will finance it, they'll operate it through the private sector, they'll enter into some kind of an agreement, but the asset will be retained by the taxpayer. There's other P3s, which are the complete flip opposite, which is the private sector pays for the facility, owns the dirt, enters into a long-term lease with the municipality, and over the period of 25, 30 years, either turns the keys into the municipality for a price, or it has an extension of the agreement. We're looking at all kinds of different models. There's legislation on franchise agreements in British Columbia that we're looking at, but a P3 is an interesting model. And one of the models we're looking at is where the private sector simply uses their cash, uses their land, builds it, and then we basically, the city, provide a lease guaranteed so many hours per year of community use. And that lease is still subject to electoral consent because it exceeds 5 years, and it would be a long-term lease. As long as the private sector or the private person or the consortium gets their internal rate of return that's satisfactory to their folks, that's a model we're going to look at. But that doesn't mean we own it. I would suggest, and I'm a big proponent of public ownership and maybe finding a private partner to be part of a project, but the ownership is kept by the taxpayer. We're going to be looking at all those models. I could go on and on about P3s. Some have failed miserably. When you look at the history of rec centers, and I know several, and then some have done very, very well. P3s, private ownership, work well in larger centers because you have volume, you've got visitors, you've got concerts, you've got multiple events. It comes down to numbers. When you build an arena in Edmonton with 1 million people, you can put a lot of bums in seats. Hard to do in a small town when you only have 10,000 people. Even if you got 20,000 visitors, and you have 10,000 permanent residents, it's the numbers are tougher to achieve just because you have smaller numbers. So we're going to be looking at all those options.
Okay, appreciate that. Do you have a follow-up, Councillor, before we go to Councillor Lemon?
I'll pass the mic here.
Okay, Councillor Lemon.
Yeah, thanks so much. Through the chair, I got 3 questions. I'm going to lump them together. I'm not really sure who they're directed to. It might be the consultants or staff. So first one is business plan, second one is data source, and third one is some clarification on location and next steps. So first one, business plan. In the survey, there was calls for some more numbers, some business planning, return on investment, justification. So, expressing concern about costs, taxation costs, impact to taxpayers, and I'm wondering, so what do we have on the horizon for providing that, for doing some modeling, looking past capital costs, looking at operational costs and connecting that to viability? So that's question 1. Question 2 is I would like to get more data from the survey. So it's fairly high level here. I'm wondering what can be provided in order to do a bit more qualitative, quantitative analysis of the numbers. So for example, there's good summaries in the report, but I wonder what the weighting is of them. Like, did 100 people say this and then 50 people said that? I'm trying to understand residents' priorities, so that's a request. And the last one is, following up on new federal opportunities for funding. One of the things that that they're going to be looking for is municipalities being ready to go with a plan and something ready to go. I don't know what the timeline of those grants are. So it's my understanding that in order to start referendum process, start borrowing, start finalizing that we're going to need a location and a fairly defined project, including what it includes, preliminary work, etc. So what is the next step? What is our timeline right now to getting to those key 2 questions? What is the location going to be? and what is going to be included. The survey does recommend something, but at one point we're going to have to finalize those decisions. So I'm hoping to get some follow-up on those.
Okay, you're losing me with all your questions, so I'm going to go back
First
to
one, business plan. Yeah.
your business plan. So, Mr. Harding, do you have a comment on that?
Sure, yeah. So it's a great question. It actually was originally a part of our scope as a consultant team to provide. It's a sub-consultant of ours who specializes in doing those types of business case and return on investments. Where that stalled out is that you need to have the what to measure what your return on investment is. And so as we started to kind of go down the road in terms of, is there spectator seating? Is there not spectator seating? How many seats are there? What's included in the facility? That scope was put on hold until we could gain a little bit more confidence on what should be included in the facility. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg problem that we have here in terms of determining what should be included in the facility. Once you rally and feel like this is what we have for the community, then you can run the analysis in terms of what would the return on investment be for your community if you have that piece. So step one would be trying to wrestle through that problem. Once you wrestle through that problem, then it's a easy exercise to provide a report in terms of what a potential return on investment would be with the amenity, linking it to what the amenity would be. So that kind of layers into your third question again around, how do we go to next steps and what is the location and then what is included. I think this survey does give us some really good clues to what the community wants to see in it, and there's some direction that's provided here. So it would be a starting point.
Yeah, just to follow up, and the third question was about data sources. So maybe seeking access to anonymized responses, written responses, just trying to get a drill in a little deeper on sentiment in the community and what people are saying.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a ginormous Excel spreadsheet that you have full access. It would be anonymous as well, but yes, that can be made available, no problem.
Thank you so much.
Good. Any other comments, Mr. Brown?
Yes, just quickly, I've been informed by our corporate officer, specific to the question on a financial plan, business plan, and this will be talked about on May 26th. Today just being reporting out on the survey results. I'm just going to read it verbatim, but basically the loan authorization bylaw that council would consider to go to the people, the amount that you would be considering, that loan authorization bylaw is to be submitted to the Inspector of Municipalities, and in that bylaw, the Inspector of Municipalities requires the total borrowing amount, specific purpose, the amount per purpose, maximum term, any related service, supporting documents in that bylaw include the financial plan, the capital plan, the tax impact, and the evidence of electoral approval, whether it's a AAP or referendum. So that loan authorization bylaw, once it's completed with all these different attachments, is presented to the province for their approval before you entertain fourth and final reading. This will be discussed in greater detail on May 26th, because our window, gentlemen, between now and October 17th, which is the general election, is roughly 5 months away. And our window is there to consider a referendum question this fall, but that's a decision council may decide to do or not to do. If you choose to do a separate referendum, it would be most likely either in 2027 or 2028. But on Monday or Tuesday, May 26th, you'll have a better understanding of the timelines when the staff report comes before you. So to specifically answer the question on both the financial and business plan, that will be submitted if you decide to proceed with the loan authorization bylaw for this fall's municipal election and tie a referendum question to it. Okay?
Thank you. Okay. Thank you all for your time. Mr. Harding, thanks for the presentation. Thanks for being here and for doing the survey.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Mayor. Sorry. I do want to give out a big shout out to Darren and the team. That the $108 million, and I've been very critical. Boy, that seems like a lot of money. And Darren's heard me in the last year talk about other pricing and other facilities. What Darren has built in is a very protective layer of both contingency and cost escalation. So when you see the 108, a lot of people think that's just the cost of a base arena. When you look at the actual base cost, which is the key number we are going to be looking at, staff are trying to determine what is the base per square foot cost to build a facility. When you add the contingency and cost escalation, because he's not only budgeting for today, but he's budgeting for 5-6 years out, that's where you see this large number. And I'm glad it's in there. I'm glad the survey respondents saw that. So I just want to caution those that think, well, to build an arena is 108 with a few amenities. The base price is far less. It's just the contingency, which is very protective, and the cost escalation amount, because every day that passes, prices go up. It's been built into this. And I do want to thank HCMA for being extremely conservative and making sure that we're going in at the highest number and not the lowest number. So appreciate that.
All right, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on, but before we get into development services, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Thank you. All right, Miss Jenny, we're just going to take a break to use the facility. Ms. Cheney, we're ready to go whenever you are.
Ready to go, Your Honor.
We're ready?
All ready.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. All right, Mr. Jeps, are you going to do the Development Services quarterly summary for us?
Yes, Your Worship. So to begin with the formal presentation, definitely here to answer any questions you guys have related to these stats. One thing I would like to highlight further to the request of the previous committee of the whole, where there is information requested related to C-Click Fix and some of the numbers that are associated with that specifically. You will find on the last slide there on that document, breaking it down in comparison of Q1 between 2023, 2024, 2025, and 2026. Other than that, it is our standard reporting process on the other slides. But again, just to follow up on the request from the previous committee of the whole, we wanted to include the C-Click Fix, and we'll continue to report on the C-Click Fix quarterly. That way we can see comparison on stats as well as the year-end. We'll do a year-end comparison as well. So happy to answer any questions if council have any.
Council, any questions for Mr. Jeps? Council Chair.
Through the chair, we've got vacation rentals coming down significantly. What is that attributed to?
Through the worship, Council Chair. So that directly attributes to the fact that our bylaw officers have been pushing hard. They've been trying to get that to be able to get to a point where they're just maintaining. And so I'm happy to report that at this point, we are primarily enforcing, when it comes to short-term rentals, we are primarily enforcing at this point on failure to abide by conditions of the license, not necessarily operating without a license. So it is a significant shift from previous years where we were focused solely on getting the compliance and the aspect of having a license. Now we're at the point where it's the conditions of use associated with those licenses primarily.
That's great news. On the opposite of that, parking trending upwards. What sort of complaints are we getting?
Through your worship, it is primarily park contrary to signage. We do get some complaints around parking and overtime parking, so exceeding the times of posted limits. But again, primarily around the parking contrary to signage or park over 24 hours.
Okay.
Some people park with half their truck hanging over the end of the sign and get a ticket.
I got one of those. I learned my lesson.
Yeah, me too.
My next question is, just because it's not clearly stated here, 2026 Q1, is that comparing to full year for all of the other slides? Or is that comparing to just Q1?
Just for clarification, is that the C-Click Fix slide you're referring to?
No, it's actually all other slides.
Okay.
Outside of C-Click Fix.
Thank you for the clarification. The other comparisons are the full year.
Okay.
Again, we are carrying these information over from previous years, so we don't have it broken down on a quarterly basis for historical years beyond the C-Click Fix. Again, just trying to make sure that was a late addition that we did add at the request of the previous committee.
Okay. I've got another one.
Good.
Okay.
Good.
If I go on. Building permit trends are, they suck. For just cost wise, would you say this is what it looks like entering a recession, or do you expect to see a resurgence in the amount of permits we get?
Through your worship, I would say let's take a look after Q2. We have seen an increase in the initial portion here of Q2 where we did suddenly get an influx of permits. And so we do expect that we are going to have an upward trend until we get through Q2 here. We can kind of start to assess on what those trends are actually going to look like. But it is a little bit early. Q1 was a little bit lighter than previous years when it came to the number of permits. Overall, you can see on the building services slide there in Q1 for the building permit, we did issue a total of 22 permits compared to pre-2025, which was 21. So the numbers are in Q1 pretty comparable. But again, in order for us to kind of see the overarching trend, we do want to wait until we get a little bit into mid Q2 here to kind of see where those trends end up laying.
Thanks.
Councillor Stegner.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, do we have any current local real-time data showing whether affordability or housing availability is improving, worsening, or remaining stable as new supply comes online?
Through your worship to Councilor Taylor. Great question. I may defer that one over to Director Simon.
Those are computers, Councillor Staples, not crystal balls.
Through your worship to Councillor Stapenhurst, everything is anecdotal thus far. We don't have anything that's formally tracking it. You can look at MLS listings, but the variability in Revelstoke's housing stock is very challenging due to the age of it, due to the quality of items or of housing that ultimately comes on the market. I think it's fair to say that the increased stock has resulted in an increase of availability. There's more that's on the market now than there was 5 years ago. And I would also say the changes that the city has made with respect to our zoning regulations, our OCP regulations, has increased the variety in available housing stock. 5 years ago, we're not seeing apartment buildings or multiplex developments that are seeing one bedrooms going for $350,000, $370,000. So there's more variety on the market than there was 3, 4, 5 years ago, most certainly.
Okay.
Follow up, Council?
Certainly. I think maybe I'll switch gears for a second while I process that and ask a question more towards bylaw. Looking at the qualitative community feedback and quantitative enforcement data, when evaluating future policy priorities and regulatory approaches, do you have any recommendations for council on how to use those to formulating new policies coming forward?
That's a hard one to answer at this point. Using some of the data that we currently have, looking at the trends that we are seeing in the bylaw realm, this significant increase, the significant number of calls that we're receiving are still around the parking and traffic enforcement side. So looking forward into future policies, I think at this point we should hold, because we are just finalizing our parking management strategy here, and then subsequently our downtown plan for the later Q4, I want to say, of 2026. Once we have some of that data, it'd be better for us to sit down and do a bit of a review on what future policies will be driven by and what our future priorities should be. But at this point, I think we are still in the data collection stage and then reviewing some of these documents to determine next steps.
Okay, and then maybe a follow-up regarding housing. With the development activity that's reported in the Q1 report, together with the other long-term city-supported housing initiative already underway, what anticipation do you foresee in the increase in housing inventory over the next coming years?
Through your worship to Councillor Stapenhurst, we are very keen to unpack the census data that is being collected right now that will be released towards the end of the year into 2027, which will give us some good insight. Based on development activity that we've seen, we don't anticipate it slowing down in the same capacity that it has in other jurisdictions in British Columbia. We are still quite busy, and we are still seeing multiplex development. We are still seeing proposals for apartment buildings at the pre-application stage, and we are still working on ways to incentivize that small-scale multi-unit housing that the province has been pushing quite heavily as well. It may slow down a little bit. 2024 was a really big year. 2025 was a really big year for applications. So you might see a bit of a dip due to the current economic climate. However, Revelstoke will likely always be insulated to a certain extent as a predominant lifestyle community that people will always pay to want to come and experience the lifestyle here.
Okay.
I will note, though, that we are in the process, and council endorsed through the 1.8 tactical plan for use of OAP funds, the commission of a housing and population study. And so we have had preliminary conversations with the consulting team that will be looking at trying to quantify all the housing that is currently in the hopper, as well as the demand and need for different types of housing in the community, so that we can have better data to report. Revelstoke, we're under 10,000. We don't get good CMHC data, so we don't get any CMHC data, rather. So we need to almost do custom housing and population projections the same way we did back in 2021. So we are looking at revisiting that, which will serve as a baseline and an anchor for the 2028 OCP update. I know we all want better data. It's the reality of a small town though, and you can even look at the realtor listings and the reports that they provide. In such a small market, you're never going to get anything that's representative of the average. It's all dependent on what is on the market, what people are going to sell. And there's such variability in the housing quality in Revelstoke. A single family dwelling is not equivalent across the board, the same way it would be in larger municipalities where they're having mass production of hundreds and thousands of units rather than Revelstoke that's seeing dozens of units come online at a time.
Yeah, I think maybe to quickly follow up on that, I think the challenge with looking at MLS data is it doesn't currently reflect any housing that's under contract. It just shows availability and what's for sale, but while something may be listed as for sale, may be under contract, so it's essentially it's not on the market. And then, obviously there's a sales pitch too involved in this, right? But if you look at the stats from BC REA, I mean, if you look at national like housing, CMHC housing stats, all of those from a provincial and a national level, it shows housing starts are declining. And I'm just wondering if that's a trend that we will be seeing here in Revelstoke. And I think it's challenging because, like as you said, we are not collecting that data. We don't really have any current real-time information in regards to pricing availability. So yeah.
Through your worship, Councillor Bruno, I mean, we do collect data on number of units that are granted occupancy, number of units approved through development permit. The challenge we have in Revelstoke is our market isn't big enough. So we have Mackenzie Village come in for their next phase of development. It skews our data, it skews our numbers. The resort comes in for their next phase of development. It skews our numbers, skews our data. In a larger urban market, you're gonna have less skewing of it. In Revelstoke, it's totally dependent on one or two large developers and what their objectives are for the next 1 to 3 years. And it skews our data immensely.
How can we, and if I may just through the chair, how can we separate that data to have a better kind of like a whole, like better, like not necessarily holistic, but like a more accurate picture as to what's happening in the market with real conditions. So when we're looking at proposals, when we're looking at affordability, we can say, yes, this is in line, or no, it's not in line with what we're seeing.
Through your worship, Councillor Staphenhurst, we are going to be trying to quantify to a certain extent with some folks that are quite knowledgeable in this field through this OAP study. That said, I do fear Revelstoke being a resort municipality, we're never going to get the data the exact way that you want that will be as clean as the data you get in a Kelowna or even a West Kelowna, right? Revelstoke will always be somewhat of an anomaly due to the variety of housing that we're seeing, and housing that's coming online at the resort is going to be very different than housing that's coming online at Southside, right? And they're all lumped in together when we look at our occupancy data, when we look at our total number of units that are approved, and it doesn't give an adequate reflection of affordability. I will say, if we continue down this road of constructing more unit housing than single family housing, affordability without a doubt will be better than it otherwise would be by building low density everywhere. That's basic supply and demand and basic availability for the units and cost per square foot.
Maybe just a quick follow-up question based on that comment. What are we learning as we go through the process, as we go through these applications, looking at our, like we just did our OCP rewrite? Are you tracking like potential changes for when we start looking at the OCP and making amendments to that, and when will that process be underway?
Through your worship, Councillor Staphenhurst, the OCP update is intended to be underway in 2028. That's when we want to commission the project. We still have to scope out that project, but we have been thinking about what the framing of that is going to look like. I think the city did a great job with the 2022 OCP establishing a vision, objectives. I don't anticipate that changing in any significant way. What we can do a lot better at, and this really comes down to getting community buy-in. There's no crystal ball on you build 200 multi-unit housing product and then all of a sudden you have affordability hit, right? Housing is a long-term game, and the trends that you're going to see aren't going to show up in the course of a year or 3 years or 5 years. It's that 10, 20-year horizon that you really want to understand and unpack. But with the next OCP update, in my opinion, the focus really needs to be on an extensive community consultation to establish an appropriate land use strategy on a neighborhood by neighborhood basis, so that the community has a better expectation as we do see demand and growth pressure continuing in Revelstoke, especially for infill development, that the community has a better idea of where the medium density is going to go, where the high density is going to go, where the mixed use is going to go. And if I can say one thing about the 2022 OCP update is that we could have spent more time on unpacking that land use strategy a bit more holistically.
Okay, and then maybe just lastly, if I can, just through the chair, I've been hearing a lot from various sectors of the market regarding the lack of commercial space available. How can we address that?
Through your worship, Councillor Staplenhurst, one person's opinion here, I think quantifying it to a certain extent using proper economic analysis, and that's something that our group has had conversations with the Community Economic Development Group on. That would be incredibly beneficial and provide us valuable insight into whether or not zoning bylaw regulations need to be tweaked. I will be incredibly transparent. We have attempted to have conversations with the business community. Those conversations usually devolve into conversations related to parking and not so much economic development trends. So when we did the zoning bylaw rewrite, we did try to speak with the business community about emerging business trends that would influence zoning regulations, and it would tell us, okay, we need to amend regulations to support this type of business more thoroughly throughout the city. We did not get that level of feedback. We understand anecdotally that there is a commercial shortage, but it's not something that has been quantified thus far. So that would be the first step.
Great, thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thanks. If I can move on to business licenses, we've got 84 new in Q1 compared to 59 of last year. Do you guys have any data on what types of business licenses those majority are, or what the trend is?
Your worship, Councillor Cherry. Not off the top of my head, I do not have that data. We could definitely look at including that to see if there are any trends going forward.
No, I appreciate that. And then just a quick comment for the next one you guys give us in Q2. This is great that it compares Q1 of 2026 to all of previous years. Can there also be a bar for Q2 of those previous years, just to see where we're trending? Because, you know, if everything happens in Q1 and then there's very limited for the rest of the years, I just would like to see that data when making future decisions.
Comparison. Through your comparing quarter to quarter, year over year.
Yes, but also full year, so we can see where we're trending in compare, if that's available.
Through your worship, Councillor Cherry, generally speaking in our group, Q1 is quieter.
Okay.
And we're always concerned, oh, is it going to be a quiet year? And then all of a sudden Q2 ramps up, and that's reflective this year as well.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions for our development services group? Seeing none, we're going to move on. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate that. Going to our CAO. A little information on your week last week.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was asked by Councillor Staplener if it was possible to do a presentation today, because I am not going to be at the next regular council meeting on May 26th, attending our CAMA AGM. And then the next committee of the whole is not till June 11th. So I've got a bunch of photos and I took a ton of photos of the trip, but I really want to talk about today is what the work of the advisory committee has been working on. And this group is made up of mayors predominantly of the 14 resort municipalities in conjunction with support from CAO Nyla from Tofino. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to come up with a new funding formula to pay for infrastructure impacted by tourism. As you know, our only sources of revenue when it comes to tourism is either the MRDT pot or the RMI pot. The RMI is a 3-year agreement with the province. Roughly, we get $850,000, $860,000 a year over a 3-year commitment, and then it's renewed. But the pie, the ultimate pot, is capped at $13 million, and that's to be shared with the 14 resort municipalities. Our MRDT amount, I will have Whitney put on the first slide, please. We've got a 5-year history of both MRDT and OAP funds that the city receives from the province. This is based on our 3% MRDT charge on all accommodators and also our OAP funds. So I'll just wait for Whitney to make the change. If not, I got to back up, Whitney.
Just a moment.
Sure. Probably best if I just stand by the screen. Be a presenter. Okay.
Ivana Whitestone.
So you can see tremendous growth in MRDT. This is for the city of Revelstoke. And we've broken down what the OAP is, and we all know how those numbers are generated. These numbers affect your RMI because RMI has base funding and it's tied to growth in MRDT. So even though we're growing quite a bit in MRT revenues, the pot remains at 13 million for the province to dole out to the 14 resort municipalities. And of course, we're restricted, very restricted, on what we can use the MRDT funds. And the challenge with the 14 resort municipalities is how do you pay for a wastewater treatment plant expansion? How do you pay for water? How do you pay for new rec centers that basically service the tourism sector? So the province has asked this group, this working group of the 14 RCCs to come up with what we call a levy, a fee, not a tax, even though it's funny, to me it's all the same because it all comes from the same pocket. The province doesn't want to introduce a new tax. So they've charged the 14 resort municipalities with the challenge to come and pitch a levy, a fee that would meet the needs of all the infrastructure challenges that we face. So how do you come to that? Well, in Tofino last week, I was very pleased to see that a lot of work that's been done by this advisory group, led by the Resort Municipality of Whistler, they did a presentation. Now, what I'm about to show you is just a model. It is not final. All models can be critiqued to death, but it's a start of a conversation with the province that we're not asking for no new money. We're not asking for more RMI money. We're not asking for a new tax to be implemented. We're not asking to increase the MRDT. We're asking the province to consider this proposal. So I'm just going to give you a quick 5-minute summary. Today's just for presentation purposes because it really constituted about 65% of our discussion in Tofino last week. So Whitney, if you can go to the next slide. What's being proposed is similar to a DCC charge. So as you know with DCCs, and this group knows DCCs inside and out, I don't have to explain to you DCCs. What you do is you take the next 10, 20-year horizon and say, okay, we need to do the following with infrastructure. And then the assist factor, and we need to raise the following funds to meet growth. Basic DCC terminology. This proposal is similar to that, where we identify what do we need for water, sewer, roads, bridges, rec facilities, etc. We basically determine under a tourism cost levy charge, similar to a DCC charge. What we're telling the province is let's talk about a parallel. Again, this is something that would be paid by the visitor, not the developer. Developer pays a DCC charge. This would be a levy to the tourist, to the visitor. It basically follows the same parallel as a DCC. So you basically update your current projected visitation volumes. How many people stay per day? How many people stay per night? What does that translate per month, per year? And then you prorate that over 20 years. You identify and refine all your associated tourism-related capital projects, your wastewater, your water, your bridges, your facilities, whether they're cultural, arts, recreation, and other tourist-dependent infrastructure. And then you design and allocate a charge to meet those costs. So basically, what are you going to charge to pay for those infrastructure costs? Final slide, Whitney. So I'm going to just throw a bunch of numbers at you. I'm going to try to dummy this down as much as I can, because when it was presented, it was like, whoa, it was like a fire hose of information. But then I really broke it down, and I thought, you know what, this does make sense. So I want to share that with council today because I think it's a unique opportunity to introduce a very small levy that would actually meet the needs and hope that we have the provincial support. So let's take Osoyoos, for example. How it works is Osoyoos decides, you know what? Yeah, that's good. That's good, Whitney. Perfect. I got Osoyoos and Whistler. But I'm going to start, this is Defino. It's cut off. Sorry, guys. Osoyoos, Whistler. Let's talk Osoyoos. They identify 137 million of infrastructure that's required in the next 20 years. They need to recover 41 million from the tourists because 30% of that infrastructure relates to tourism. And I'll get to the 32% in a second. So basically, all right, Osoyoos looks at the next 20-year horizon. We need 137 million to meet the tourism. 32% of those using that infrastructure are tourists. The other 68% are residents. So the assist factor, the benefit factor is 32% for the tourist. And then what's recoverable in each asset for a total of 41 million. So what you do is you take the day visitor. This is per year. So in the case of Osoyoos, based on the data from the economic impact value of tourism in Osoyoos, so every community has its tourist numbers, this is how many people visit Osoyoos on a day basis per year, and this is how many people stay overnight. And I'll get to that because you have to project that on the average stay, which is roughly between 3, 4, 5 days a visit. When you take the total visitor days and you include growth over 20 years, so a day visitor, you're going to grow 3% population. Your day visitation will grow 3%. Over 20 years, that's your total number of day visitors. You can see these numbers just grow exponentially. Overnight visitor is one person staying 4 nights, so they're going to pay a levy per day, per night, per person. When you add up on an annual basis, this number and this number, you multiply it by 4 nights, 5 nights, you get to this number. You divide that by 365 days, you get your annualized visitor day at this. That is the number you use to charge a day levy of $1.62. That number times $1.62 pays for this infrastructure. So again, your total 20-year visitation numbers over 20 years, 25 million visitor days, including both day and overnight, over 20 years, times $1.62 per day per person, gets you your 41 million. And how they get to the 32% is they take the population of the permanent residents, they take the annualized visitor, which is this number, comprised to a daily annualized number. So roughly in Osoyoos, there's 2,600 visitors, 32%. 2696 into 5724, 32%, there's your 32% factor that goes toward tourism. So I think you get the general idea. It's a model, it's not perfect, but this is probably the closest we've come to universally agreeing that this is something that the working group would pitch to the mayors. And I think this fall, Gary, you will see at UBCM this proposal. And now the 14 RCCs, once we pick it apart, and there's lots of questions, the biggest question is, how do you collect it?
I was just going to ask you that.
How do you collect $1.62? You can't just have a POS for every single person that crosses the jurisdiction within the city of Revelstoke. We don't have a gate. So we went through a whole exercise on how do you collect the $1.96 to pay for this when the cost to collect the $1.96 might be $2.
Yeah.
Right? You can't be spending $2 to collect $1.96 per person per day. So we went through a whole exercise about tolls and gates and POS and maybe adding it to another invoice. We didn't come up with an answer. That's the challenge, really, is how do you collect it? But it's a really small number. And you look at Whistler, it'd be 33 cents a day because their numbers are so large to pay for $94 million of infrastructure on a $314 million total bill. So I'm just presenting it. I don't have a lot of answers to this, but this is the concept. What I'm interested from you is Does it make sense? And is this something that you would support or direct Gary to have further conversations on? With that, I can take any questions.
Councilor Chair and then Councilor Stigler.
Thanks. This is very interesting and I do appreciate all of it. Obviously, it's in work. This is something that happens across many different municipalities across both Canada and the US. It's nothing new to me, whether you look at Vegas, Nashville, Austin, Niagara Falls. They have a number of ways to collect these fees, whether it be overnight accommodations where a fee is levied or an extra layer on restaurant bills. There is a pretty good network of data that's easily available. I'm supportive of this, where this is going. Obviously, I won't drill you on the numbers because we haven't fully run the exercise. So you guys are still working on that, but I am.
It's work in progress.
Overall, generally supportive.
Okay, Councilor Stigler.
Yeah, I'll echo the same comments as Councilor Cherry. Very supportive of this, very appreciative of you bringing this forward, and it'd be great to see the numbers tentatively for Revelstoke. I think we could really improve the visitor experience to Revelstoke by adopting such a program, and I think overall that's really like what this fundamentally comes down to is how do we get tourism to pay for tourism? How do we increase the visitation? How do we increase the overall experience in our community? How do we lessen the burden on our residents? Yeah. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Lynn.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. Did the collaborate at the conference, did they discuss options for collecting this? And I know, like, for example, a restaurant one, I, as a restaurant patron here, I throw up a red flag on that because I don't want to be double paying for infrastructure when I go to eat at a local restaurant. What are some of the options that are on the table?
One person suggested, and I know nothing about this because this has to do with AI and mobile technology, but the use of the phone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where that's going to go, but that was one idea thrown out there. Everyone carries a phone. Is there an opportunity to capture that fee? I don't know, but AI was suggested. We all know the work that we have with TELUS. We can follow folks because of their phone and the data. It's all tied to that. One option was just simply a gate, but a gate like Parks Canada, when you come into a national park, you buy a pass, there's overhead. Now, Whistler probably over time could pay for that, but a small community is not going to put a gate up. And is that inviting? We had all kinds of different ideas that I can share with you when I have the final minutes presented, because we went through like a round table. How do you collect $1.96 without spending $1.96? But the younger crowd in that group, not me, are saying there's some cool digital ways, but we didn't get into the details. So unfortunately, I can't answer that question right now, but I can certainly get you more information.
I actually have an answer for that. For what they do in Niagara Falls, they have what's been labeled as a voluntary tourist fee. So on your restaurant bills, it's there, and you can ask for it to be removed. It's usually generally 3 and 10%, just in regards to restaurants from firsthand knowledge.
What we didn't talk about and wouldn't be supported is adding it to the MRDT, because the MRDT is just for the overnighters, right?
Yeah.
We got to capture the day users. Well, how do you capture day use guy or gal? But the number's very small, and you can see how attractive it is and how it builds up over time. We're going to get more information on this. I know we have our annual meeting with the mayors this fall at UBCM, but when I get a summary of our minutes, I will share this with council. And in the minutes will be more detailed discussion on this proposal. The other option we talked about is what they call the Resource Benefit Alliance, which is made up of the 22 Northwest municipalities stretching from Prince Rupert all the way to Prince George, where they got $250 million of funding over 10 years to go toward those municipalities affected by resource extraction, the LNGs and the mining up in that region. That's $250 million that is collected in royalties with resource extraction, goes to Victoria, and then is remitted back to those municipalities. One of the options is, could we use a template for tourism? Same principle. Victoria collects millions and millions on tourism, remit back those funds no different than the RBA, and also no different than the Fair Share Agreement, which is Northeast British Columbia, the Taylors, the Fort St. John's, the Dawson Creeks, who collect oil and gas royalties for the province and receive a fair share contribution back. However, province is sort of poo-pooing that. They're not crazy introducing a third agreement similar to that. According to the Alliance Group and the working group, the advocacy group, this proposal would probably be better received.
And so just in thinking about this, because it's self-administered in a way, sort of thing, it's going to be not something that the government's going to cut down the road. When you've got the 14 communities bearing it, even though that the government's going to support this, they're at the table and talking about it with the advocacy group. So it's a positive. It's just a way to come up.
One final comment: the CAOs have been made it very clear, and we're very vocal. Increasing the RMI another 2 million, 3 million doesn't even move the needle. So in the case of Revelstoke, we're at 850. Let's say we got 950. That doesn't pay for anything. That extra $100,000 a year, Steve could eat up in half a day. So this new proposal brings millions over a 20-year horizon, but it's tied to exactly what you need, like the DCC process.
Councilor Sturgeon.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, as we move forward with our parking strategies and things like that, how can we incorporate, this, if you're paying 25 cents for a half an hour of parking, or 35 cents an hour, how can we sort of incorporate this business model that you've presented today into infrastructure improvements such as parking, such as, and I'm not sure I even want to touch on bus fare, shuttle services, other amenities that are tourism facing that we could sort of try to collect more from.
Well, in the case of Tofino, they do have a parking fee.
Yeah.
They do have parking meters, but they also provide seasonal free shuttle. And they're saying if you're going to do parking meters, make sure you offer free shuttle services, because it sort of negates the blowback and pushback, because no one likes new fees. But these parking revenues are substantial in these smaller communities. I mean, Tofino's $1 million gross in parking revenues, $600,000 net. I don't have a clue what Whistler is. That's a bigger number.
Yeah.
But parking revenues pay for a lot of infrastructure, because you can use that for debt servicing. You can use those revenues, because they're consistent, to finance debt, to build some things that's affected by tourism.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I really do appreciate all your hard work on this.
Councilor,
just a quick follow-up question, and maybe if I could see the slide again, because it might answer my question on segmenting of what they would be used for.
Yeah, Whitney, if you can put up the three community slide there, Vesuvius, Whistler, and Tofino, thank you.
And I guess the question would be like, what would be the breakdown of what they've used for? Is that rationale? Is that under development? Is this sort of a sketch, or what? And then how are they arriving at this sort of?
Right, so that was a question we asked. So it really goes back to the DCC exercise. So in this case, each one is different, but for presentation purposes, they use the same service areas, and these are the typical ones you use for DCCs minus recreation, because we know recreation, it's not allowed as a DCC charge. But here they just categorized your classic DCC service areas, and they used examples. All right, in the case of Vesuvius, you're going to need $80 million to expand water over the next 20 years, with a benefit factor going to the tourists of 32%. They just use this criteria. Each community is going to be different. In our case, our recreation number would be huge if we're going to build a new rec center and we want tourism to pay for it. But in another community, they might have a rec center already built, but they need a bridge or they need a sewer expansion. This here and determining these service areas and these amounts would be the same exercise as a DCC. You'd bring in a consultant. All right, what does Revelstoke need for the next 20 years to make sure we can meet this growing need of tourism? Steve would work with the consultants. They would come back. We would determine this, clearly defined, and we would plug in the number and then input the formula. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess a follow-up question would be, do these fall under any statutory limitations, et cetera? I mean, the province is always very sticky on creating a new tax, not whipping something out. So this is in essence, a form of taxation. And the question is is related to that, is that what freedom do we have to make up our own categories if this is a voluntary initiative, such as something like housing or, I don't know, et cetera, things, food security, like a food security presentation, et cetera, other directions for the funding, or is the focus on just core infrastructure? And how would you determine that mix? Like what percent go to water and roads? How are we setting that formula?
Yeah. Another example would be an airport. I mean, some communities rely on airport service like Tofino. Tourism is a big impact on the Tofino airport, both land and water. Tofino might have this. To your question, we haven't gotten to the stage where we would talk to the province on how we legislate this. This presentation was built around the existing DCC framework. A new tourism levy would require new legislation because we would be charging a levy to the tourists under a different framework, but similar to DCC. But for presentation purposes, we thought we would pitch it to the province initially as, you already have legislation in the framework with DCCs. Let's just modify it. Allow us to add what we consider to be tourist dependent and infrastructure related to tourism. And whatever that number is, we plug in the formula and that's the levy. But we haven't gotten there yet. So when we do meet with the province and the mayors pitch this, no doubt that question will be asked. But for discussion purposes, this is all framed around the existing legislation of DCCs. And it would have to be modified to tourism because this is minus this. That's really your DCC framework right there, those big four. And that's all. We at the 14 RCCs would ask for that list to be a lot longer to include plus, 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 plus. Lots of questions. It's just a concept. It's a model. It's not perfect, but it's probably the closest where we got consensus in the room where we're looking at each other going, you know what, this has some merit.
Where does this go from here?
It's going to go back to what they call this advisory group made up of the mayors. I think the mayor of Whistler leads it. I know Tofino's part of that. The big three of the 14 RCCs is Tofino, Revelstoke, and Whistler in terms of both MRDT and RMI funding. So Gary's going to be involved in this. I know it'll be talked about on the agenda come September at UBCM, but the province wants us to come with a proposal. When the mayors feel comfortable, I think it'll come back to each respective council for support, and then it'll be up to the mayors to pitch it and hopefully grab the attention of the Minister of Tourism and Finance, because we're involving finance, the Ministry of Finance here, and their support for hopefully the next general election, which is in 2028, I think, provincially.
So we're working with tourism, municipal affairs and finance right now regarding this. We just sent them a letter from all 13 just to kind of preface this sort of thing going forward. And the ministries were telling us what we should put in there and how to work it. So they're on board. So it's just a matter of.
So the final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add Revelstoke to this. Okay. We're going to get the numbers from TR. We're going to get the numbers from the chamber. You know, we have a pretty good idea of what we need. It's all going to be broad right now, and it's going to be generic, but we're going to try to get to our own number of what a fee would look like for Revy. Okay.
All right.
That's exciting.
Okay, thank you all. Okay, we have got everything on our agenda done, so I'm going to call for termination. Councillor Stapleton, seconded by Councillor Devlin. All in favor? Motion's carried. We're done for the day. Thank you to Councillor Devlin, Councillor Lucio for being here online, Council being present, and thank you, staff. All right, Miss Janey, we're done. Thank you.